so it's going to get easier. We'll be breaking these things up between hopefully the rest of Revelation, where it won't be like trying to do an entire chapter in one night like we did the churches and just like overwhelming everybody. So we're breaking this down in a little bit smaller pieces. They'll still be scripturally significant to what is being talked about, but there are some things that is some read ahead. There's going to be things that will probably take a couple, 3 weeks to actually bring it all together instead of trying to slam everything down your throat in 1 minute or 1 hour. I know, because I know that I've jammed a lot of information, a lot of Greek, a lot of definition, a lot of history in 3 short chapters over 21 weeks, but I know it's been a lot and it's overwhelming. So we'll be breaking that up a little bit differently now. So first of all, I just want to do kind of a little bit of recap, because last week, we were talking about the concept there is no pre-trib rapture. And unfortunately, I had to go down that rabbit hole for Revelation 4, 1 and 2, but that isn't really the significance of 1 and 2. We'll hit that really quick tonight. But one of the things I didn't mention last week, I just want to bring to the point is we talked a little bit about the context. So we went back into Revelation 1, and something I want to bring forward a little bit, because this is something that kind of do not forget as we're going through Revelation. And that is, if you remember in Revelation 1, the word revelation was apocalypsis, which meant a disclosure. And then in Revelation 1 in the second verse, it ends with talking about Christ's testimony. So we learned that meant he was holding nothing back. So it is a full disclosure, holding nothing back by Jesus Christ is the book of Revelation. And it's all prophecy to what's to occur. Now, with that being said, it also says, for all those things soon to come. We all get that. Things being events, places, times, and everything else going on. So if Christ made a declaration, a legal statement, I am fully disclosing 100%, not holding everything back of everything that's going to take place, then by that account, there has to be a rapture, because the Bible does prophesy a rapture happening. So unfortunately, no prophecy has been fulfilled for a rapture to be pre-tribulation. But I'm making that point so you understand when you were going through Revelation, why we keep going back into the rest of the Bible is simply because we're bringing the prophecy from back there forward, and Revelation is showing the fulfillment of all those prophecies. So as we're going through, don't forget that everything we're learning, and we keep going back, it is because Christ said it's going to happen. He's guaranteeing it. He's going to show us. He's going to let us know. There's no secrets. There's no hidden books, messages, meanings, things we're not going to know till the end, to everything that's been prophesied. So just with that said, that's why last point, and there is no pre-trib rapture. There's no prophecy fulfillment at that point. But he does guarantee, if it's been prophesied, I'm going to show it to you. And when we get there, you guys will see it. So that's it on that. So what I'm going to do, just kind of round that out right now, is that, so we know that's Revelation 1. I want to bring us up to speed where we are here. As we went through Revelation 1, we know Paul was having a vision, John had a vision, and he's seen Jesus Christ in many different forms and ways. He didn't call him out by his name. He said, one like the Son of Man. Then we've seen a lot of different symbolic things like, what does this mean? Went back to the Bible, like, oh, this is Christ, this is Christ, this is Christ, this is Christ. Same thing, over and over and over. And then he was told, write of the things you've seen, which was him, and then write of the things that are present tense, which is the churches, the age we're going through, the seasons we're going through, and then write of those things that are after this. Now, remember, we kind of hit a little bit on the word after this last week. So even back to Revelation, where he said after this, which they present tense, meaning after what's going on now, we're going to go ahead, you're going to write about those things that happen after this. So what we're going to do right now is tonight, right off, we're going to go ahead and read all of chapter 4. And a lot of it, because we have a little bit of time, I'm not trying to burn all the time, but we're only going to be really looking at verse 3 tonight. Like I said, we're going to try to keep this simple. And like I said last week, also, you can kind of see something that I said it's not unlocking a secret to the Bible, but an understanding of how to on how to understand the Bible. When you come across things, it's like, why does it say this? This makes no sense, or who cares? So there's always an answer to it. So we're going to go ahead and read chapter 4, verse 1 through, I think it's 11, verse 1 through 11. And interesting, when you go through it, just really kind of sounds like a lot of crazy things being seen. What does this make sense? Who is this? Why is this happening? So let's go ahead and hit it. So chapter 4, verse 1. It says, after this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice, which I heard speaking to me like a trumpet, said, come up here, and I'll show you what must take place after this. At once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments with golden crowns on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder. And before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. And around the throne, on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures, full of eyes in the front and behind. The first living creature like a lion, the second living creature like an ox, the third living creature like with the face of a man, and the fourth creature like an eagle in flight. And the 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and within, and day and night they never cease to say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who is seated on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, worthy are you, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. Okay, that was a lot of fun. So obviously you're reading this, and it's interesting read, but a lot of times just gets read over, even in a church, because there's just a lot of stuff in here, and it seems like it's not all that important. But there is a mass importance to this, because we go through 4 and 5, we're going to be bringing out a lot of stuff, a lot of teaching, a lot of understanding that's going to help understand how Revelation plays out. And when we hit chapter 6, is where everybody's kind of waiting for the point of when the tribulation starts. We're going to go back into Ezekiel for 3 chapters. And so that way you'll have a firm grasp understanding of what is happening through prophecy in Ezekiel that's happening at the beginning of the tribulation, and who the players are and what's going on. So anyways, now last Sunday? Yeah, last Sunday. I just want to bring this up. This is a side note, that we were here watching The Chosen that night, and someone that's here tonight actually said that we've been watching the part where Christ is there talking to everybody, and he speaks about the thunder coming and people thinking they hear voices. Like, the thunder actually talking? Some yes, some no. And this person said, well, Tom said, if it's in the Bible, there is a reason it's there. It's not just words. It's 100% correct. So I'm just going to take a side step right now. I didn't answer it that night because, Phil's leading it. He answered everything great. I don't need to jump in and oh, no, that's not how it is. No, you answered everything good. But I'm going to give you a little something to see where that comes from. If you noticed, when we read this, it already talked about peals of thunder. So we're going to talk a little bit about thunder as we go through chapter 4. But if you'd like to, just for a quick side reference, roll over to Revelation 10. And this will kind of see that everything that is said, am I in Revelation? Yeah. Everything that is said, when it's referenced, there is a reason, and it's important to understand. And we will be learning all this stuff. It's not just a boom, boom, boom. Now, yes, thunder can be boom, boom, boom. So in Revelation 10, we're just going to read the first few verses. And it says, Then I seen another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow over his head, and his face was like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. He had a little scroll open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and called with a loud voice, like a lion roaring. When he called out, the 7 thunders sounded, and when the 7 thunders had sounded, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from heaven saying, Seal up what the 7 thunders have said, and do not write it down. Just a little reference. Yes, the thunders do speak. There is a reference to it. There is a meaning behind it. So yes to your statement, and yes to what you're asking. It does mean something that the thunders speak. We're not going to go into that tonight. I just wanted to bring that out, and you can actually see where it actually says, the thunder said. So they are a spoken thing. Okay, enough on that. That's all I just want to get down to. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and we're going to read 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to read 1 and 2 first. And it says, after this I looked, Revelation 4, verses 1 and 2. After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, come up here. Like a trumpet, we go back to Revelation when we know what like a trumpet is. That was the one like the Son of Man, who is Christ, standing behind him. So Christ said, come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. There's that word after this again. So after what things that are, the seasons we're in, after this apostasy of the seventh final church, I will show you what's going to happen next. That's all it says. At once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven with one seated on the throne. Verse 3, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Okay, now you see this. There's all these cute little colors, a little rainbow flashing around, and it doesn't seem to make sense. And I'll be honest, when I first got into this, I'm like, what is this jasper and carnelian stones and emeralds? And the rainbow in my head was kind of like, oh, this could be talking about, the rainbow after the flood. Okay, I'll try to figure this out later, but what do these colors have to do? And a lot of people will teach on this, and you kind of will go back to, and I did the same thing. I kind of went back to, like, okay, what's the significance of these things, these stones, these gems back in the day? Like, why are they so significant? Is there something about historically I need to understand? And I did this big search and study, like, well, yeah, they're pretty important. They're kind of cool, but it had no significance and relevance to what this was talking about. So I had to really do a lot of digging and come back with things I'd read in the Bible, like it did talk something about some of this one time. So we're going to go ahead and go into it, and we're going to break all this down, and this is where it gets a little bit fun. This is going to be kind of a fun night. So I want everybody to roll over to Exodus 28, all right? And we're going to focus on 15 through 21. But in Exodus 28, this is where they were making, for Aaron, for the priest, high priest, they were making his cloak and his turban and all of his clothes. And it goes into a very specific way everything was made, right down to a breast piece, which we're going to get talking about. And it goes down to colors and the type of what do you want to call it? The type of string to use. It's not actually called string, but the right colors. You weave it this way, you do that, and you put it on here like this. I mean, God's laying out this very specific design on how he wanted this robe dressed. Now, if you're reading that back then, or if you're reading that, you're going, who cares all the detail on a high priest robe thousands of years ago? Well, just in that one chapter, there's other times we're going to be referring back to Exodus 28. There's things in there that are relevant to understanding Revelation, but we're not getting into that tonight. What we're focusing on right now is the things of the jasper, the carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had appearance of emerald. So we're going to start in verse 15. I'm going to read through verse, I think it's 21. Yeah, verse 21. If you're ready, it says, you shall make a breastplate of judgment in skilled work. In the style of the ephod, you shall make it of gold, blue and purple and scarlet yarns. And fine twisted linen shall you make it. It shall be square and doubled, a span its length and a span its breadth. You shall set in 4 rows of stones. A row of sardius, topaz, and carbuncle shall be the first row. And the second row, an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row, a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold filigree. There shall be 12 stones with their names according to the names of the sons of Israel. They shall be like signets, each engraved with its name for the 12 tribes. Okay, so when they made this breastplate for the priest, they laid 12 stones, 4 rows, into the breastplate. And each one of the stones represented one of the sons of Israel. So real quick, here are the 12 sons of Israel, or where the 12 tribes come from. And they're named after the sons of Jacob. And that is who later became Israel. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. So that was the 12 sons. So each one of those stones represented one of the sons. So if we go back and we read starting at verse 17, we can see which stone represents which son because they were put in the order of their birth from oldest to youngest. So in verse 17, you shall set in 4 rows of stones. A row of sardis represents Reuben. Topaz represents Simeon. And carbuncle represents Levi, shall be the first row. And the second row shall be a row of emerald, represents Judah. A sapphire is Dan. And a diamond, Naphtali. And the third row, jacinth, is Gad. And the gate is Asher. And the amethyst is Issachar. And the fourth row is beryl, that represents Zebulun. And onyx, represented by Joseph. And the jasper, represented by Benjamin. So there are the 12 stones. There are the 12 tribes. Now, when we read into verse 3, we just read on Revelation, it said, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper, carnelian, and the appearance of an emerald. There's a part of the rainbow. We're going to come back to the rainbow. So there's only 3 stones talked about in not the exact same order. So now we have to go, okay. So the first one it says in verse 3 is, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper. When we go down, we know jasper is the last stone, which is the last born of Abraham, my bad, of Jacob, and his name was Benjamin. All right, so where's my pen really quick? Let me get that thing ready. His name is Benjamin. So he's the last one. It's represented by the first stone that's talked about in Revelation 4, verse 3. And Jasper, Benjamin, in Hebrew, his name is Bin Yamin. That's how it's pronounced. Benjamin, by what it means and why he was named this, is son of the right hand. Of the right hand. Okay, now I know a lot of you out there know that Christ has been called the Son or the right hand of God. But just because, I don't want, in case somebody's listening, don't think I'm just making things up. If you go over to Hebrews 10, you don't have to. I can read it out loud. It's only 1 verse, 2 verses. I'm just going to point out right here, this is where we understand where Christ is called the right hand of God. And it says in verse 12 and 13 of Hebrews 10, but when Christ had offered for a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God, waiting for that time until his enemies should be made a footstool at his feet. So Benjamin is describing, and by definition, the son of the right hand. So that would mean, what we know as being Jesus Christ. Now, the second one we want to look at here is, it went to Sardis. Now, you're going to look and go, hold on. Up there in verse 3, in Revelation 4, it doesn't say Sardis. It says, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian and an emerald. There's nothing about a Sardis. Well, but in Exodus, it says Sardis. So Sardis, here's the word, in Hebrew, is odom. Odom, by definition, is ruby red by color, or translated carnelian in English. So that means Sardis, being the first in the row of Sardis, that means that represents the first son of Israel, the first son of Jacob, who was Reuben, is the Sardis, or from here in chapter 4, verse 3, the carnelian. That's how it's translated in English. And that is Reuben. Reuben is, let me get this right, R-E-U, little apostrophe thing. It's like Reuven. That is it. Reuben in Hebrew. All right, and that means, that translates in Hebrew to behold a son. All right, so we also know again that when it comes to Christ, who is the Son of God, behold a son. Again, talking about Christ. Now, the last stone, we're going to come back to rainbow because it goes rainbow first, and then it talks about an emerald. I'll read it here. And around the throne was a rainbow that had an appearance of an emerald. So now it's emerald. So an emerald is the fourth stone mentioned here in Exodus 28, and that is from the son. His name is Judah. And Judah, which represents an emerald. So Judah, let me make sure I spell this right. Judah, where you go? Yehuda. Yehuda. That is the word in Hebrew for Judah. And it translates to, this means praise and thanksgiving. Not the turkey either. Praise and thanksgiving. Okay, so that's three of the stones, three of the things we're looking at, and what we're seeing that John is looking at. But it's not complete yet. So the next thing it talked about in here is, and he who sat there had an appearance of jasper carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow. Now, okay, so in Greek, the word rainbow is iris, I-R-I-S, and it means rainbow. Not a big thing, but it's important to understand what it means, because if you go back to the Hebrew, it's a different word. And what I mean by that, so like if, as an example, if you go back and read Genesis and you read it where they textually didn't put the word rainbow, it'll say, in fact, I got Genesis, run over to Genesis 9, and we're going to see the point where we see that there's a rainbow that God delivers as a covenant. He's no longer going to kill man, heaven's thing, by flooding him out and doing all those things. That was his covenant. But in Hebrews 9:13, my bad, in that is Genesis 9:13, man. In Genesis 9:13, everybody knows the story. We're just going to do one verse, 9:13, and this is the point where he makes his promise, where God delivers this rainbow. And it says in verse 13 from Genesis 9, I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and earth. Now, we all understand that as being rainbow, which is correct, but I don't want anybody to think I'm just making things up, because there's two different words here. There's rainbow you're seeing in Revelation, New Testament, but yet the word rainbow is not used in the Old Testament. So that's our next word, kasheth and quash. Those are Hebrew words. All right, so the word bow, kasheth, right here, the first one, it means a bow, and it means rainbow. It comes from the word quash, I think if I'm saying that right, quash, from the word meaning bending. So it's a bending rainbow, that's where bow comes from, in the clouds, and thus becomes a rainbow. So in kasheth is rainbow. So when you are reading in the Old Testament and the word bow shows up, unless you're talking about bow and arrow, although a bow could still have the same word as quosh if you actually had a Hebrew Bible, because it does mean bending. But you know we're talking about a rainbow. Now, the significance of why I'm making this a point right now is because something we're going to read next. I'm putting this out because everybody knows the concept of the rainbow and God's promise that he's not going to reflood the earth. So that you can see from something you already know, yes, there is a rainbow. That was the whole point behind it. So if you would, start moving over to Ezekiel, and we're going to find out what a rainbow is in context to what we're reading here in Revelation and what John would be looking at. And a lot of what we're going to see is very similar, almost in very detailed specifics, to what John is seeing right now, what we're going to read in Ezekiel. Ezekiel is a great book, a great prophetic book to the book of Revelation. A lot of stuff. We'll be going back to Ezekiel a lot as we're going through the book of Revelation. But the first thing I want you to see, we're going to go to Ezekiel 1, and we're going to go to verse 1 first. Just verse 1. We're not going to read the whole chapter. The reason why we're doing verse 1 first is I want you to see the context of what it is. And it says, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1, in the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Chebar Canal, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. So I want you to have the context to what is happening with Ezekiel. He is seeing visions of God. And you're going to see, if you read all of Ezekiel 1, you'd be reading that going, sounds very similar to what we're just read in chapter 4 tonight. A lot of things are similar and almost specific. But we're not doing that because we're looking at the context of the purpose behind rainbow. So we're going to move down to verse 28 or 26. I'm sorry. I'm going to read through 28. And you'll even see in here, this sounds very much the same thing. So we are now looking at John, who is up in heaven at the throne, as we just read, and he's having visions, or he is seeing God. Here is Ezekiel's vision, not being thrown up there, of what he was seeing of God. Verse 26, and the above expanse over their heads, there was like the likeness of a throne, in appearance like sapphire, and seated above the likeness of a throne was a likeness with a human appearance. Stop right there for a second. Like a human appearance. Now remember, this is pre-Christ on earth walking around in human form, human form. So they don't actually have a great image of exactly what he's saying, visions of God, of what God looks like. But God gives him a vision like, here, I'm going to let you kind of see who I am. So he starts seeing this vision, and he makes the note, wow, God kind of looks like a human too. I mean, back then, who would have thought what God looked like? You don't ever see him. He's bigger than anything we have. But he puts in there, it was like this appearance, human appearance. And up from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw as it were gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire enclosed all around. And downward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw as it were the appearance of fire. And there was a brightness around him, like the appearance of the bow, like the appearance of the rainbow that is in the cloud on the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness all around. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking. Now, two things. One, this sounds very familiar. When John first seen Christ, Revelation 1, one like the Son of Man, what did he do? When he seen him, he fell on the ground with fell to his face as though dead. Here is a vision of him, Ezekiel, doing the same thing. And when we read some more, you're going to see the same thing. Daniel is going to do the exact same thing, all pre-Christ. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. So that was a point. But if you go back to 28, we're going to read this a little slower and break it down. Verse 28, like the appearance of a rainbow, who's he talking about? God, that is in the cloud in the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness all around. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. So the brightness was around was the appearance of the rainbow. God, the glory of the Lord, is that appearance of brightness all around. So the rainbow is what he is seeing is the glory of God. So, well, I'm going to write that up there. So when we're looking at I'll write it up there anyways. What the heck? Everybody knows what rainbow is. But rainbow, boom, equals glory of God. That's the rainbow. So now, I want to make sure I don't get ahead of myself. So when we look at this and we break this down, so we see four things. We see the first, we see four things, and that was jasper, carnelian, rainbow, and an emerald. The jasper was like the son of, so when John is looking, he's before the throne, just like when he was talking about Christ before, he's standing before the throne. What does he see? The son of the right hand. Who is that? He sees Christ. And if you remember right back up there in verse 2, at once as in the spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven with one seated on the throne. We a lot of time have the vision, there's God, and then Christ has a little tiny throne next to him because he's the right hand. He has his own little tiny throne. No, the one sitting on the throne, the same one in chapter 1, verse 4, when it talks about one, the one on the throne was the one that is and was and is to come, was Christ sitting on the throne. So here he is, he's up there, actually physically now in heaven. Well, got Christ pulling him up, say, look here. And he's seeing, on the first part, he is seeing the Son of the right hand, Jesus Christ. He is seeing the Son, Jesus Christ. And then the next part, the rainbow, He's seeing he is the glory of the Lord. And who is that? Jesus Christ. And he is to be praised. And who is to be praised? Jesus Christ. So when he stands up there, he's just doing almost the same thing we've seen in Revelation 1, pointing out who is absolutely in control. The one I'm seeing is the Lord God Almighty. Now, so if we took verse 3, and I'm going to read it as it is from chapter 4, as we've seen it, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had appearance of an emerald. All he's talking about is seeing is Christ. But I done kind of rewrote it with taking the colors out and the rainbow out and put in what they actually mean. So this is what would be summarized. And he who sat there was the Son of the right hand, the Son. And around the throne was the glory of the Lord and being praised. Pretty simple to understand. Awesome to understand when you go back and understand how much the Bible supports it. But I want to note one other thing. If you got your thing up, we want to go to Revelation, same chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. The reason why I want to point this out is because the last part there, when it says he is praised, this is there's more to it. Well, there's not more to it than that we're going to see that in a couple verses. So if we were doing all four tonight, this would be a lot simpler. But I want to bring out something to see what is happening around the throne. So in verse 6, this is what part where it's talking about the creatures around the throne. And it says, verse 6, and before the throne, there was, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. And around the throne, on each side of the throne, are four living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. The first living creature like a lion, the second living creature like an ox, the third living creature with the face of a man, and the fourth living creature like an eagle in flight. And the fourth living creature, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and within. And day and night they never cease to say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. All right. Why I say that is because the point to that verse 6 through 8 right there is showing what is around the throne. And that last part, he is praised. So around the throne are these beasts, and day and night, they are constantly praising him. So when John was lifted up, when Christ said, get up here, so I can show you basically what happens after this, what happens next, what we call the tribulation. The first thing John notices is very apparent. He just sees Jesus Christ in all of his glory sitting on the throne. So that is the lesson for tonight. I told you I was going to keep it super simple. So it isn't like, oh my gosh, I got to try to remember everything. I tried to write everything on the board. But understand a little bit this kind of, like I said, not unlocking how the Bible works. The Bible, when it comes up with these colors, the Bible will have the answer in there somewhere. You just got to know where to find it. And that is what I've always said. You have to understand the other 65 books of the Bible, or you'll do like a lot of people, they'll go out like I was trying to do, like, what the heck does Jasper had to do back in the day? What the heck is a carnelian? I didn't even know what a carnelian was. What is this thing? And I was about to go, okay, but this doesn't fit. That would just mean me interpreting things. But like I've always told you, if it's mentioned in the Bible, there's a wording in there or something, there is a purpose. It is in there for a specific reason. So all this is a way that we can see Jesus, the one we call Jesus, is on the throne. He's being praised, and they used this is the God's divine everything, is all I got to say. This is where it's insane that way back in the day, to the two mothers of the 12 sons of Israel, man, he was planting in their heads like, okay, you're going to name this one, you're going to name this one, you're going to name this one, because 6,000 years from now, or whenever, I need people to understand what I'm saying over here when they get up to heaven. I don't know. Insane stuff. But anyways, thanks for your time tonight. I hope that was understandable. Next week is going to be, next week will probably be a couple weeks long. So I got to keep it in a way that's understandable. Not give too much, because it's going to go into some really cool, deep stuff. And this is not the last time where we're going to be going in and looking at names to understand things that the Bible says. So thanks for your time tonight. I hope to see you guys next week. Thank you. Any questions?